Welcome to Tradies Who Lead, the podcast about everyday leadership for everyday legends. I'm Ashley Baltecki, a diesel mechanic by trade and your host. In this podcast, we hear from trade leaders from all industries and job titles about how they show up as everyday leaders so that we can learn from them and level up our leadership skills on site. In this episode, we cover the importance of mentors on site, how to take total responsibility as an everyday leader, and the power of community. We're joined by Simmons, a fourth-year electrical apprentice in Melbourne who left good money and job security to take on apprentice wages as a mature-aged apprentice. Sharing his apprentice journey online, Leon's career pathway before and during his time in construction shows us how we can all have an impact on our peers and demonstrate leadership, even without a title. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today, Leon.
No worries. Good to be here.
What is leadership to you?
Leadership to me is somebody who is inspiring. So leadership, I don't want somebody, if I'm looking up to somebody, I don't want them to just be somebody who's my manager. I'd like somebody that shows me what I can do and what I can be to move forward. There's a lot of times when I've been on sites where there's A grades that I'm working with, for instance, and they're the ones that are just saying, go and do this, go and do that. Where there's some people that I work with which are really that's what I want to be as a person, and feel like going to work and wanting to be, I guess, like them, which is really, really nice. Yeah, to probably say somebody that I'm inspired to be like, or inspired to want to work for is probably a good way of putting it.
It sounds like those role models and having those really encouraging role models is what you look to as a leader, not just their title. Do you see yourself as a leader knowing that the title isn't the key factor of being a leader?
Yeah, 100%. I'm not fussed about titles or what somebody puts as me. I'm an apprentice, and I guess the stereotype of being an apprentice is you are the lackey or the person who is, does all the rubbish work, so to speak. But, even though I do have an apprentice title, I still try and be somewhat of a leader on site. So whether that's other trades coming up and asking questions, if I can answer the questions, I will answer them and give them, if they need it, whatever they kind of need, or if I can't answer the question, I'm happy to pass it to somebody who does know. I think it's just because you don't have the title of manager or A grade or project manager or whatever it may be, I still think that an apprentice can be a leader in their own way.
In terms of being that leader as an apprentice, was there a moment, or was it before your journey as an apprentice, that you kind of saw yourself as a leader for the first time, or realized that you have capacity to act in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 35 now, so I've had a numerous roles throughout my career, not just in construction, but I used to work in hospitality, and I worked in that for, I think, about 7 years. And as part of that, I was a restaurant manager and a bar manager. So I have somewhat experience in a management role, and then I just try and use that and adapt that to my current role as an apprentice electrician, whether that be people management, time management, organization. I think you can use roles from previous roles and just tweak them and adjust them to what you want or what you need in the role that I'm in now. And that kind of definitely helps me. I was a manager, I think, in restaurants for about 4 or 5 years. So I definitely can use those skills, which I learned along the way, in what I'm doing now.
I'm really curious, I guess, know more about that, because there's transferable skills that you've had from previous leadership experience that have obviously shaped how you show up as a person in any workplace or any work site or any role. What does that look like for you as an apprentice when you are in that position? You said you have tradespeople approaching you and you'll answer their questions as one type of situation where, titles don't really change the dynamic of that exchange or that conversation. But do you find that there's times when you kind of a force that's managing up, or even just managing tension or emotions in a crew because you have those people skills as a leader?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think I'm, like I say, I'm 35. So I think people genuinely think that I'm not an apprentice. So I think when they approach me as an A grade or somebody who is. So I think that definitely is on my side. And I just be confident with if I know the answer or if I don't know the answer. I think that's the key. If you there might be builders, or there might be like plumbers or other management that come up and ask me questions. And if I don't know, I'll just act. You've just got to act confident and portray that you're allowed to know, you're allowed to not know, sorry, what the answer is, but finding out is more important. So if I don't know the answer, I'll just say, let me get back to you with that one. Let me find out from somebody who does know, whether that be my A grade that's on site, whether that be my project manager, or I need to find out the information myself because I don't have it to hand. I just think being confident is a big part of it. And I had that, I feel like I get that confidence from, one, having numerous jobs, and two, being in management roles before and having to deal in those high pressure situations. I definitely think that helps me now from the experience that I had before.
It's also interesting to me that you talk about taking responsibility for that question, even though it's not your job. It's not your job to have the answers, because you are the apprentice, or even if you were the tradesperson, you're not the manager or the site supervisor who we would expect to have those answers. What is your thinking around the fact that you take on the responsibility of answering that question and kind of going above and beyond what's expected of you in your current role?
I think it's good to know certain information. Like, I think, with us, as I do Mechalec and BMS, there's not 50 people on site. Sometimes there might only be 2 or 3 of us on site, or even sometimes there might just be one person for that site. So you have to take responsibility of what's going on. And if you don't, you could miss the boat on something. It could be something simple as, you might get sheeted out of an area because you didn't take the initiative or the responsibility to find out some information and make your life harder. So I just like to know things. I like to know what's going on. And I think the more information you know with what you're doing and what's happening with the site, and as the site progresses, is always important information to know, even if it isn't necessarily your responsibility or role. I think it's going to help you grow as a person as well, to take on and, live in a bit of a pressure cooker situation where, it's easy just to handball it to somebody else and be like, dust your hands of it and be like, nah, it's not my responsibility, see you later. I think sometimes, if it's going to affect you down the line, it's always in good or important information to know.
I definitely know that I experienced that as an apprentice, because I was an apprentice that came straight out of school. So I didn't have a lot of world experience. And it actually took me a few years to wrap my head around all the moving pieces, even within the business I was working in the transport sector, and understanding the relationship between the supervisors who are managing us as apprentices and tradespeople, obviously then the dynamic of customers, and then the front desk, and then the parts department, and then the sales. And sometimes that big picture actually helps us be better at our job, because we have greater empathy for the whole system. And instead of being like, that was your job and you've made a mistake, it's like, okay, I can appreciate all the things that can go wrong for you in your role.
Yeah, definitely.
Here's the problem solving we can do together now, instead of just pointing fingers and being frustrated, but still not being able to be productive in our own role.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think, and my age definitely is a factor for that, with having real world life experiences and being an apprentice at currently 35. That it's becoming a lot more common to be an apprentice, or be a mature age apprentice within the construction industry, because people do have career changes, and they make it a lot more accessible now to do that. And like you say, if you were just coming straight out of school like yourself, you don't necessarily have those real world experiences, or like, your first job is you've got a builder coming up to you asking you, or you've got your manager or project manager asking you these questions, and it is hard. So my age gives me the confidence to do, those kind of things, and deal with different kind of, tradesmen or, management people.
There's obviously a lot of benefits to having that world experience coming into a trade as an apprentice later in life. Have there been many challenges for you coming in, I guess, not as that person fresh out of school, or even just in their first few years out of school?
Yeah, I definitely think there's been lots of different tech challenges, small or large. I think you've just got to put yourself out there and be willing to learn. Like I say, like with the beard and my age, and people do genuinely think, oh, he's an A grade, and then when they say, oh, I was like, when I'm a first year, and I'm like, oh, I'm a first year, and they're like, oh. And you do see a look in people's eyes where they're like, oh, I don't know if I should be asking him, or I don't know if I should trust him with this information or whatever I'm about to say. So, you do have to overcome that. And I think I did fine for, I reckon, the first 1 or 2 years. it was kind of hard to be like, oh, I'm just a first year. Like I just, it is difficult. And I reckon it was when I went from my second to my third, I feel like that was a big like leap where I felt like I knew what I was doing. Because from the first to the second year, sometimes you do feel like you are, you're learning. You're always learning, even as an A grade. But that first couple of years, I felt like I was, still learning the trade and what I needed to do. And it was almost as a third year, something just kind of clicked and something just kind of, I felt like a boost in confidence, because there was a lot of times where A grades would just leave me to do the job. Like there'd be, a certain job that I needed to do and they'd just be like, yep, this is what you need to do. Just get it done, go get it done. And I felt confident enough to complete these jobs without having to constantly be like, oh, what am I doing here? Sorry, oh, what am I doing here? So that was like, a big step for me.
Oh, I'm curious to know your thoughts from the perspective of that you've obviously been that early year apprentice, you've transitioned to that later part of your apprenticeship where you have more confidence, you can work more independently, but you've also got the world experience where you've seen good mentors and bad mentors, both in this industry and other industries. I'm curious to know what you found as an apprentice has been examples of great mentorship and teaching on site, and how I guess you're applying that with still the empathy of I'm still an apprentice. I know how hard it can be to learn so much information when everyone's so busy and there is so much pressure in the trade. Is there someone or something that someone did for you that really stood out that helped you as a learner?
I reckon most people that I work with, most of the A grades, if not all of them, they give you the time of day to learn. And that really helps, because if you've got a question, they will say multiple times, if you don't know, just ask. If you don't know, just ask. And it really fills you with confidence too when you don't know to ask. Like when I was going to trade school and I'd speak to people about their job and stuff like that, and some of them were like, yeah, my A grade, he never gives me help, or he never does this, or if I do something wrong, he throws a screwdriver at me. And I was like, this is a really different experience to what I'm getting. And it was genuinely down to the people, the A grades that I'm working with. And I think that resonates from all the way from up to the boss, he's great. He is, he's a nice guy, and that filters down to the A grades. And, some of the A grades that I work with have now become friends outside of work. And we go and have some beers, we go camping, we go to 4-wheel drive shows and all these kind of different things. And that definitely helps by having an A grade or a mentor that is willing to teach you, not the, I guess, old school way of, oh, you're an apprentice, you should be sweeping the floor, you should be doing the rubbish jobs. Like the job that I'm on now, the A grade is like, yeah, when the boards come in, you can start fitting off the boards. I'll just carry on roughing in. And like, the board work in some aspects is the cream work, is the really good work, and the A grade's saying, yeah, I've done hundreds of boards, you can fit them off, you can learn, you can, do the good work, and it's going to help you for your future. So I think that having A grades or people around you that are willing to teach you is the most important.
That's really great to hear, but also disheartening, because I think we all know that contrast of you have really great mentors, and then obviously you have peers at trade school who had mentors who didn't really have time or capacity or the care to be that teacher. Yeah. And that's what we need as apprentices. That's a very common reality in our industries, and it really shows how much impact we can have as one person on each other and on a team dynamic.
It definitely helps when you're doing work, and I would go back to them and I will say, oh, do you want to check over my work just to make sure that it's okay? And they're like, no, it's all good, I trust you. And it's like that kind of small little sentence of them going, no, I trust what you've done. Like, whether it just be for us wiring up a isolator, a VSD, an air handling unit, there's all these different aspects. And they're like, no, that's okay, I'll trust you. And it's like, that is that little boost of confidence that, might not mean nothing to them, but for me, or as an apprentice, having your A grade that you do look up to, say that, no, it's okay, I trust you. But then if it does go wrong, they're like, oh, it's okay. And they'll take the time to tell you why it went wrong. And I think that just comes down to, working with people that I work with, I genuinely just want to teach you, which is really nice.
And they obviously have some capacity of how to provide specific feedback as well, because I know that's something that for me as an apprentice, I got the keep doing what you're doing. And that was my feedback every year at my annual performance meeting. And that was it. And I was like, so am I doing good? Am I doing bad? What should I be working on to get better? What are where am I holding myself back, or where do I need to improve? And the fact that they're able to say, look, yeah, we all make mistakes. You need to learn from this, but here's the thing you did wrong. So you're really clear about next time, that's the thing that I need to be aware of, or I need to be more careful with. That's really powerful. And that is such an important part of the learning journey, that so many people, they don't actually know how to have those feedback conversations to help each other get better in the workplace.
Yeah, I think it's also important to try and realize that making a mistake isn't the end of the world, or having criticism from an A grade or a peer. You don't take it to heart, because if you do, then it's just going to destroy your confidence. And I think that definitely comes across for how your A grade or your peer, or whatever position you're in, feeds that back to you. If they are giving you information that's, making you feel crap about yourself, I think that's definitely not good. And I think there's a lot of that out there. I think I'm just extremely lucky to have not had any of that, and had really nice people that I've worked with, which is good.
I had a similar experience as an apprentice, in the sense that I worked with really great people, and it does make the journey so much easier. I know we were talking about before that we connected online, and that online platform, so being active on social media, is something that you started as a way to capture your journey as an apprentice. What does that journey look like for you? And I imagine it was something that you started for yourself, but I know that it's obviously kind of grown more than just being an online journal or an online record of your journey in the trades. Where has that taken you, and what has that kind of brought up for you as an apprentice and as a role model and in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, using the word role model still doesn't always sit right with me. I genuinely just started it because I love posting about tools. I love all things tools. I love new tools, old tools. I love the industry. I love the construction. I love other trades and what they do. I started it just for me. I started it because it was going to be my journey from being an apprentice to an A grade. It was nothing more than that. And then I think, the stuff I posted was just genuine. It was stuff I was interested in from other pages I followed. I got inspiration from those kind of pages. It was all just, genuine. It was never meant to be about other brands jumping on board and, saying, hey, would you like to post about this? And, I felt quite overwhelmed at start with, like, why are you sending me this? Like, what? It doesn't make sense. Like, I'm just posting stuff for me, but you're willing to send me stuff for free to post about. And it was, I don't know, it was quite surreal, to be honest. But, and some of the people I speak to on the platform, I don't even know what they look like. Some of them, I don't even know their first name, but we have conversations that are like genuine conversations. And I've had people message me, oh, how would you do this in your field? Or like, what would you do? Or like, oh, that's like what you did on site was great. Like, can you show me how to do this? And it's like, just creating these genuine relationships with people has just been really, really nice. I mean, on the flip side of that, you do get people messaging you kind of abuse, or kind of like stop pretending to be an A grade when you're not. And there's a lot of that out there as well. And you do, at the start, I would, you do take it to heart a little bit, like, why? I'm just posting stuff for me, and you're like throwing abuse at me as a bit of a keyboard warrior. But after like speaking to my wife about it, she's like, just ignore it, just delete it, ignore it, and remove it. Like, it's not going to do any good responding or feeling upset or whatever about it. But the people that are on the page that I follow and talk to are like this. They're the reason sometimes why you do posts, because they're just genuinely nice people and they want you to do well. Like, I post a video about, finishing trade, or just a story about finishing trade school and passing it, and that's all done and dusted now. And, there was probably 30 people that messaged that, some of them that I'd never even spoke to before, that were like, congrats, you're going to kill it. Your exams are coming up. You're going to smash your exams. And like, they wouldn't know me from a bar of soap. They've only known my online presence, but it's just such a nice feeling to have that, there are nice people out there that want you to succeed and do well.
I really love that, because just this week I actually met someone at a morning breakfast event who we were connected on social media, but the same. We knew each other's handles, but we'd never spoke. We knew nothing about each other beyond seeing a couple of posts back and forth. And then we met in person, and it constantly impresses me. And I'm actually so grateful for the space in trades that is that online community where we have space for everyone to succeed. we're all each other's cheerleaders, and there's a community of like-minded tradespeople who are showing up online because they love what they do, they're proud of what they do, and they just want to connect with other people who love their trade as well. And I love that both as a tradie but also as a woman in trade, because most of the women in trade I know are in different trades, different states, different workplaces. So the only way I've been able to make those friends has been online, and that's really created this big community for me that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to access.
Yeah, definitely. I like the community feel of like what I post and the people I speak to is great, and I'm a big advocate for it. I think it's great. Like people will hurl abuse or something like that, and I just try and avoid that kind of all now. And I'm not trying to pretend to be anyone. I'm not pretending to be an A grade when I'm still an apprentice. I do it for fun. I do it because I love the tools and the conversations and the relationships that I've built with some people across the platform just from posting tools and just from the industry. It seems so silly, but it's just, that's what it is. I post content about tools or reviews or, people, it's just a great community, and I genuinely love it. And I think that's sometimes why, you do get a bit of engagement from the posts, is because it's just genuine. Like, I'm not doing it to impress somebody. I'm doing it for me and the community that kind of, I'm a part of.
I really love that we've been able to look at leadership at the level of an apprentice with the perspective of leadership in other industries, but then also the great role models and mentors you've had, and obviously how, for better or worse, you are a role model for people online, but then also a friend and part of that community. When it comes to how tradespeople, whether they're apprentices like yourself, they're qualified, or they are that supervisor manager, what advice would you give them about how they can show up as an everyday leader, whether that's on site, online, in their lives, just absolutely anywhere?
Just be nice to people. No, you don't always know what's going on behind closed doors or what they have going on, whether that's if they've got issues or whatever. I think just be nice to somebody. Like, there's no need to give somebody abuse or to be horrible to them. Everybody's learning, and especially if you're an A grade, you were an apprentice once, you were in their shoes, and I think the stereotype of, oh, that's how I was treated as an apprentice has to change. Just because you treated like rubbish while you were an apprentice, people need to break the cycle, and it is changing slowly. I've definitely been a part of having people be nice. Just because I'm an apprentice is nice, I think. So just being nice to people and seeing things from their perspective as well, rather than, if they're an apprentice, you don't need to look down on them. They're still a tradesman. They're still trying, or a tradeswoman. They're still trying to learn. So I think it's just being nice, just showing up and being nice to somebody else will definitely help.
The biggest takeaway I've had from our chat is this theme around, as individuals, we have so much impact on each other, and that we need to actually take care of that impact by being nice, by being empathetic, by being good mentors. And that's something that we can all do at every level. So thank you so much for everything you've shared, Leon. I've definitely really enjoyed our chat. It's great to hear your journey. You're nearly qualified. We'll be cheering you on.
I'm very close. My exams to go, and then finishing my time in February. So it's not far.
That's so exciting. So I'm sure our audience will love to follow you on that journey as well and celebrate you when you reach the end. So thank you so much for everything you've shared again.
No worries. Thank you for having me on. It's been great.
If you enjoyed today's chat, please like or comment on this episode and subscribe to Tradies Who Lead. Your engagement helps more tradies discover the show. Thanks for joining me for this episode. We'll be back with another episode in a fortnight, and I'll see you soon.